Well, let's talk about that this morning because that is the big story. It's on the front page of the Daily Mirror. Dan Hodges is here from the Mail on Sunday. Dan, a very good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
Very good to see you. I was reading your tweets from last night this morning. You were sort of mildly incredulous, I think, when you discovered what had happened.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those stories. When I first heard it, I didn't really comprehend what I was seeing because the decision was so insane.
Mm.
And I mean, I literally, I've been working in politics now and writing about politics for 30 years, and I have never seen a decision taken like this by a major
Right.
political party, by a prime minister in the middle of the election
Mm.
campaign. And a couple of weeks ago, when he started the campaign, and you remember he started with that disastrous outside Downing Street getting
Yes.
soaking wet, and it was just blunder after blunder in the first sort of 24, 48 hours. Um, a number of people said when the election was called, all right, this is it. You watch, the polls will start to narrow, Labour will come under scrutiny.
Mm.
And I said, my first column after the election was launched, I said, look, if Rishi Sunak does not get a grip of the campaign better than he has in the last 48 hours, this could be the Tory party's last campaign. We could be looking at an extinction level event for the
Mm.
Conservative Party. And since then, it has got worse and worse and worse. And I mean, I don't think, given the way Rishi Sunak is running this campaign, his team are running this campaign, I don't think there is a flaw for the Conservative parties in this general election. I don't think there is a polling level or a number of seats that we can discount for them just going through the floor if this is how they're going to run the campaign. What were they thinking?
Well,
I mean, what on
you have to ask the
thinking?
question. We were asking it just before you came on, myself and Benedict Spence. If somebody books an interview with the Prime Minister on the same day as you're going to be commemorating D-Day, first of all, you don't have to do that. You can surely say, well, isn't that D-Day? Don't we have to be somewhere? Or as Benedict said, if you really have to do it on this day, you come to us. We're in Normandy. Send a crew. We'll be there, and you come and interview us when it's all over.
He was doing an interview with ITN, right? Are you seriously telling me on D-Day on D-Day ITN did not have a crew in Normandy?
Yeah, exactly.
They did not have somebody with a camera there. They did not have a correspondent there.
Right.
They couldn't have sent the correspondent there. But again, I mean, how this is coming. You will have seen, as I saw, Nigel Farage's big entrance
Yeah.
in this election campaign, which, as everybody has known, has blown the campaign, thrown the campaign up in the air and is
Right.
currently blowing the Tory party out of the water.
Yeah.
In his press conference, I think it was almost like one of the first things he said was about how, in a modern era, so many of our young people do not understand D-Day,
Right.
do not understand the sacrifices. Right, I'm currently up in Ashfield,
Mm.
right, which is a big target seat for reform
Yeah.
because Lee Anderson is currently the sitting MP.
Right.
Everybody I was talking about, everyone I was meeting, mentioned D-Day,
Yeah.
mentioned the commemoration, primarily in the context of immigration, small boats,
Yes.
etc. How is it Rishi Sunak, who's the Prime Minister, he's got a team of relatively experienced aides
Mm.
around him? How did none of them say, hang on, Prime Minister, we are not going to do anything at all that could even give the remotest possibility that we are seen to be disrespecting our veterans?
No.
And here's another thing. Here's another thing, Mike. This is not just a political talking point. He did disrespect the
Yeah.
veterans.
Well, I started this show this
Prime
morning.
Minister of the
This is not
country.
about politics. This is not about the
Yeah,
election. This is
well,
about,
obviously, there are huge political implications for
yeah,
this, but this is not some sort of like smear or something from
no,
from Keir Starmer and Labour. The Prime Minister of the country said, "I'm really sorry." We saw who was standing there. We saw Macron standing there.
yeah,
I think we
Joe
saw Biden
Biden,
there, and we saw David Cameron standing there. And why was David Cameron standing there? Because the Prime Minister of the country said, "Really sorry, I've got something better to do."
right,
I'm going to be honest with you. Set aside the election campaign. If we weren't in the set aside, if this had happened in normal
mm,
circumstances, in the normal run of, and the British public learned that its prime minister had basically said, no, I'm not going to. I'm not going to do the ceremony because I want to get home. I want to do an interview with someone. I've got something. I've got something better on.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to overhype this thing because I know we have a tendency to get a little bit overexcited about this stuff. I think that would potentially be a
Yeah,
resignation offence.
totally. No, I don't disagree with you because I say,
No, I mean, sorry, I can't. You know, I just and you know, we are going to. Someone is going to need. I think someone is going to need to explain what happened.
yeah,
And unless Rishi Sunak in the course of today can come up, and I cannot for the life of me think what the explanation is, unless there is something we are missing here
right.
in
Yeah,
terms of why he came back. If he cannot give a rational explanation about why he disrespected Britain's veterans on the 80th anniversary of D-Day, I'm sorry. I think he has to consider his position. I'm sorry. I mean, I know it's ridiculous, and I know he won't. But I mean, have you ever seen anything like
no,
this?
I haven't, and you're absolutely right. I mean, it may well be. I mean, say give him the benefit of all sorts of doubts, and say one of his children was ill or something like that,
Exactly.
and
Absolutely.
he doesn't want to say anything about his family because he wants to keep that private. You know, that's at the very outside of a possibility that people would maybe have a bit of understanding about it. But surely he could have even said at that point, you know, there's a personal problem, I've got to get home, or something like that. You know, he didn't have to tell us what it was, but it would appear that he's doing an interview with ITN, which isn't even going to air until Wednesday next week, and for which a clip was put out last night.
Exactly. And this is the thing. We've had no indication from Downing Street that there are any personal issues involved.
Right.
The obvious question will be, well, if there was a serious issue involving a family member or something else or a health issue, why weren't you with the family member? Why are you doing an interview with
Right.
ITN? Uh, I mean, I don't see what it is Rishi Sunak can possibly say to justify what he was doing. And as I was saying, this is a I mean, this is a major, this is not just a political talking point.
No.
You know, this is something that goes to the heart of his role as prime minister. What, you know, if there was a war, if there was some sort of national or international crisis, that seems to me the only circumstances where Rishi Sunak could possibly justify leaving the commemorations at that point.
Exactly right. And the thing is as well, I don't know whether, I don't know what he's doing today. I don't know what the campaign looks like today for Rishi Sunak. But I mean, obviously, if he goes out anywhere, he's going to be asked a question. He's going to have to say something about it. Tonight we've got the debate of the seven, and the magnificent seven, you might call them, or you may have a different word. Somebody, and Penny Mordaunt's there for the Tories. So surely somebody's going to ask her about it.
But firstly, can you imagine what Nigel Farage is going to do with this in the debate this evening? Can you imagine what Andy Lorraine is going to do with it? But the crucial thing is, I mean, the really interesting thing is, what's Penny Mordaunt going to say? Penny Mordaunt, I think I'm right in saying, I mean, Penny Mordaunt was Defence Secretary. Penny Mordaunt, I think, is a Royal Navy reservist.
Yes.
Right? There is no way she's going to stand up on stage and defend this. You said, what is Rishi Sunak going to do today? There is one thing Rishi Sunak can do. He needs to come out. I mean, why he's not out there at the moment, I don't know. Again, caveats, there's no other explanation why he did it. He needs to come out, he needs to stand in front of a camera, he needs to say sorry, and frankly, he needs to beg the nation for forgiveness.
Yeah. But I don't see how he can apologise, because he can't say he made a mistake. He can't say I got it wrong, because it's so obvious that he got it wrong as he was getting it wrong that he shouldn't have got it wrong. You know what I mean?
Normally in this sort of circumstance, I'll be entirely honest, being very cynical. Normally in this sort of circumstance, you would throw an aide under a bus.
Yeah.
You would throw someone under a bus. Now, this is the other thing that I think we might see happen today. The Tory campaign has been such a catastrophe, such a disaster. This is a nadir. I think we might see somebody unloaded. I think there might have to be a sacrifice within the Conservative campaign for this, with someone taking responsibility. But ultimately, the point is, what does Rishi Sunak say? Rishi Sunak cannot say it was my aide that made it. He can't say, well, I didn't realise I was coming back.
No, exactly.
Celebrations too soon. anyway, I mean,
It's
like I said,
weird. Well, listen, let's just before we let you go, let's talk about Labour for a moment because front page of the Telegraph today, Keir Starmer saying that he's going to recognise in the Labour manifesto that Palestine should be recognised as a state, regardless of whether peace talks have taken place or indeed peace talks have been resolved and the whole thing is finished.
yeah, I mean, what well, that just says one thing. And again, we were talking about this a couple of months ago. Um, Labour is under pressure on the
Mm.
issue. It is clearly Labour clearly has private polling. Labour's candidates are clearly telling Starmer and the rest of the leadership. Starmer is aware of it himself. This is an issue for Labour on the doorstep now. It's not going to cost Labour the election. It's not going to cost Labour a huge number of seats. But Gaza is a problem for Starmer, and
Yeah.
this is his attempt to neutralise it.
Yeah.
But obviously, frankly, Keir Starmer could turn up tomorrow in the middle of Gaza, waving a Hamas flag, and it wouldn't influence what happens here in this election because Rishi Sunak and the Conservative Party are just throwing the entire election away.
Mm. It's
It doesn't
interesting,
matter.
isn't it?
We're getting to the point where it doesn't matter what Keir Starmer does, because whatever he does and whatever issues and whatever problems he and his party have, they are just simply being dwarfed
Mm.
and completely shunted aside by the incompetence of Rishi Sunak and his campaign.
Yeah, and I mean, just for good measure, when Nigel Farage does take to this podium tonight, he was in Normandy yesterday,
Well,
and we'll probably find out that he was there for the whole duration of the day.
well, I mean, keep an eye on Nigel Farage. I mean, as I said, I've been out in Ashfield the last couple of days. People need to keep an eye on Nigel Farage and what Reform do in this election campaign. I agree with Nigel Farage. I think something is happening out here which we haven't seen before.
Yeah, interesting. Dan, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Talk to you next week. I'm sure. Have a good weekend.